Hello and welcome to episode 7 of The Journal. I'm Steve Dowson, and as promised last week, we have a lot of different stories on today's show. From the lifestyle of Jaida Keyz to the touching life of baby Jaida Fairman, suffering from biliary atresia, a fatal liver disease, and you definitely won't want to miss our live performance with Paul Hunsrao, shredding on guitar from local Toronto band Storm Their Shows. So strap yourselves in and get ready for this emotional roller coaster. Let's get rolling. Welcome to The Journal. Our first story, by producer Dennis O'Connor, is about a 19-year-old student who works for several charities that benefit the less fortunate in third world countries. His main focus is to spread the word of awareness by speaking to high school students all over Ontario. His long-term goal is to start his own charity. Let's take a look.
I grew up in Ajax, Ontario. I've been raised Catholic. My mom has been a chaplain for about 7 years now, and she's always raised me with Catholic morals, values, and all of their teachings. In high school, I was heavily involved in the social justice program, peer ministry, and I was a retreat leader, doing as much volunteer work as I possibly could. And after high school, I moved to France to play soccer, and it was there that I realized that I needed to do something a little bit more with my life, something that I would feel more fulfilling. And I decided from this point on I needed to dedicate my life to helping others in need. And that's when I came home and I got in touch with Development in Peace. Development in Peace is a Canadian Catholic organization that runs solely all through Canada, and it's a non-profit organization. And it was founded and started by the bishops of Canada. And we have about 13,000 volunteer members, which is the basis and the backbone of Development in Peace, because without the volunteer members, Development in Peace wouldn't be able to run fully. We run campaigns like Share Life, Share Lent, and these campaigns are to help fundraise money for us and for our mission. And basically what Development in Peace does is their main significance that differs them from other organizations is the fact that we don't try and implement our Western ways of change. We simply help to fund other organizations in countries that are trying to make a change in their own countries, because they know what's best for their country and the change that they need to make. So we financially try and support them, but also learn from them about what's going on and try and bring awareness back to Canada and educate people in Canada about different social justice issues going on in other countries.
Okay, so I went on the student day when I was in grade 12, and it was during the water campaign, and I got to meet Luke. So for all of you guys who went, you probably would have met Luke Stocking, and he's kind of the leader for Central Ontario with DNP.
And as part of the student days, we give students the opportunity to stay in contact with us. They fill out information. So I got Daniel's MSN contact. He was on there with a whole list of other youth. And to be honest, if you had asked me after the student day, which of these students here do you think are going to be the future leaders of Development in Peace, I probably wouldn't have picked him. He was too well dressed.
2%, such a small percentage of the world, controls half of the world's resources. So like I was saying, countries in Africa who are rich and flourishing in resources, they don't even have access to it.
And this year our campaign is in the Canadian mining industry. Each one of these individual black boxes represents a Canadian mining company that has performed some sort of injustice in a different part of the world. So as you can see, all through the global south, there's been injustices served by
these Canadian mining companies.
And we have these cards right here, which we ask people to sign, and it's our petition. The top half goes to the Prime Minister, and the bottom half goes to your MP. And basically what it is that we're trying to do is to force the Canadian government to implement a change holding Canadian mining companies, or registered Canadian mining companies, responsible for the injustices they do outside of Canada. So far, we have a bill in Parliament right now called the C-300, and that bill is basically what we would like, and that's to essentially hold companies responsible for the injustices that they serve outside of Canada.
Hi, can I speak with Mark Holland, please? Yeah, I'm a constituent in Mark Holland's riding, and I'm an active member of Canadian Catholic Organization for Development and Peace, and we're supporting Bill C-300, presented by John McKay, and we've generated hundreds of thousands of signatures to support legal mechanisms like Bill 300.
How'd it go? What did he say?
He said he's not sure because it hasn't been talked about in front of him, and he's not really involved in that, but he said that he will leave him a message saying that a constituent has called and request and then urge to vote for C-300.
Okay.
So
Hopefully you will.
My partner for the presentations with Development and Peace, Tasha Miller Francis, is also my partner for our own charity that we'd like to start. It's called Desire to Inspire, and basically it's both of our aspirations is to become inspirational leaders to the youth who need guidance. And we like to in our charity work for providing assistance in all people in need for all different social justice issues, not just one specifically. One particularly though that I have become very interested in and doing my research in is human trafficking. And on Facebook I have started a group called Put an End to Human Trafficking. And basically it's just my way of trying to educate people on what's going on in the world that we don't really get a chance to see and to witness. And I think education is a very powerful tool because we can't implement a change without understanding what's actually going on.
Wow, what a touching story. Thank you for staying tuned to the Journal. Make sure you stick around because we have lots more in store, including a performance by Paul Hunsrao. But first, we all know that music is a tool to express ourselves. And in our next story, producer Roberto Novielli takes a look into the life of Keyz, a local hip-hop artist who has a passion for playing piano and incorporates it into his music.
This is Jason DeSilva, but in the music industry, he's known by Keyz. It's simple to see how he got his name. He's the master of the keys. But he isn't just a piano player. He incorporates his love for the piano into his music production. Over the last 3 years, he's taken Toronto's hip-hop scene by storm. And this is his story.
It started actually with the guitar. That's what my pop plays. He's been playing for 20 years, and he wanted me originally to play guitar. And then we switched over to the piano because I didn't take to the guitar. My mom suggested the piano, and I took to it right away. So we started off with a little set of keys and went up sizes every so many years. And in high school, that's when hip hop started hitting me. That's when I started to notice it. I started wearing the clothes, the gear, listening to hip hop, started breathing hip hop. Piano brings out my expression. That's how I express myself. Growing up, I've had a hard time expressing myself, and the only way that I seem to be able to do it is through music. So you'll hear my frustration in music, you'll hear my anger, you'll hear my sadness. When I cry, you're not gonna see it, you're gonna hear it.
JD, he's skilled, man. He's one of the most skilled piano players I've ever seen. Honestly, I have to tell you even a little story. One time, well, the first time I seen him play, I had to walk away. It was too much for me to handle, you know, because I've seen a lot of people do their music thing. A lot of people claim they have talent, but this man truly has talent, and it's not a mistake, you know.
It really starts from nothing. Every beat is created from scratch, and that includes with my feelings in it. So I'll sit there and I'll just fool around on the keys a little bit. And if I find something catchy, I'll record it, and then from there I'll build a little beat around it, and then there's other sounds as you listen to it. It just, oh, this needs strings, or this needs that, this might need this and that. Like, you just fill in the spaces, fill in the pocket holes. We'll just listen to music, and they basically just listen to the whole thing all together. Well, as a producer, you listen to music and you pick it apart. You start dissecting it with your ears. There's a couple different ways that I see myself producing with a lot of different artists, just collaborating everywhere with everybody, possibly because I want to be able to influence everyone. There's not that much going through my head. Really, it's the fingers just take off. I can't even say that it really just comes natural, because after practicing something for so long, it becomes natural. It becomes so natural that you can just throw your fingers on it, and it just, like, I can just start touching a bunch of keys. I know it's not hooked up right now, but I can just start touching a bunch of keys, and music comes out. Stuff comes out, and you don't really think about it. Or sometimes it doesn't even start with an idea. I'm fooling around. It just comes out. So I don't really have an idea somewhere that I want to reach. Like, say I want to create a club track. I won't have that in my mind. I'm just gonna be like, I want to experiment with something. So I'll experiment with a pop or techno kind of, and from there something will just come out. I'll sit on the keys and I'll set a random VST. That's what a plugin is. It's a VST that gives you a number of samples to work with, and you just go through the different sounds, experiment with it, and just see what sounds good, and just build up from there.
You can't compare him to other producers because he does have his own style. So you really can't. He's special, man. You know, he's special, 100%. I just don't know how to compare this guy. You can't.
He's in his own league.
He's in his own league. You can't. You can't. If you want JD Keyz, you go JD Keyz. If you want something else, you go somewhere else. But he definitely has his own flavor that he's putting out there. He's uncomparable, man. That's crazy, you know? And most producers are like that. They have their own style of recording. But I've never met anybody who uses the piano the way he does, you know? He actually abuses the piano, you know, I feel, but he's great, man. He's a great person to have on your corner, you know? You don't want him against you, that's for sure.
I also push them, like, okay, you gotta sound like this, or you gotta add a little some of this, try some of this. Like, I'll give them suggestions, how to improve themselves. I've given them a list of different little activities to go through, like reading the newspaper, walk around with a dictionary, and always try flowing 24/7. You look at something and you just be freestyling, whatever. Always practice, because your voice is your instrument as a rapper, as an MC. So you have access to it, it's free. Use it. Okay, where you're saying different between you and I, could you condense that?
Okay, make it smaller, right?
Maybe by one syllable.
Okay. I'll take it off. I'll go in there and I'll take it off and stuff. I'll make the whole line smaller. Why don't you do it like part by part?
JD expects to revolutionize the sound of hip-hop in Toronto. He takes pride in his work, not only because he likes to make a good beat, but because he loves hip-hop. With JD's love for hip-hop, his skillful music production, and his brilliant piano playing, there's no stopping Jason Da Silva from reaching the top.
it's good to see that the piano still holds its own in genres such as hip-hop. So right now we have a very special guest for you, as promised, Paul Hunsrao here. He's a guitar player from the band Shores, I'm sorry. And he is going to be playing for us on his guitar. So, Paul, would you take it away for us?
Sure, no problem.
All right. Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Make me jealous. Okay, so I have a few questions for you.
Shoot.
So, what inspired you to not only play guitar but expand your genre beyond that of mainstream?
Well, I'm not gonna lie. When I first started playing guitar, I was into mainstream music, but as my musical taste grew and as I kind of got more into the guitar playing world, I realized that I wanted to play something that was a little bit more challenging. And I mean, you know, it's the genre of metal or what we play isn't really accessible in the media today. So I mean, it was tricky to get into it because I was kind of like, is this really going to go anywhere, or I'm just going to be playing guitar by myself? But yeah, it's really challenging, and I think that it opens up a lot of doors. So I mean, that's why I decided to do this and not pop music and stuff like that. But don't get me wrong, like as a musician, I listen to everything. So
awesome. So how long have you been performing or even playing?
I'm 25 now. I've been playing guitar for about 12 to 13 years, so half my life basically, give or take. And with the band that I'm in right now, I actually have been with them for 2 years roughly. So with them, yeah, 2 years solid. We've been playing together.
Okay, so what do you see as your future in music and with your band?
Well, as every band, everyone always wants to get signed and stuff like that. But I, especially with the guys that I'm making music with, we don't think that being signed is you know, the greatest thing. So a lot of bands think that being signed is the be-all and end-all of the music industry, you know. And in today's day and age, I think that if you're an independent artist, you kind of have the leniency to go a little further, per se, because a lot of the label people are, well, they kind of try and control you, you know. And it's like, yeah, you might get the backup from a label, and they'll kind of put you on the nice shows and the nice tours and stuff. But at the end of the day, it's like, do you really want to be comfortable? Are you going to be comfortable with yourself, and are you, you know, is the integrity of the music you're making still there, you know, or is it just to make a quick buck, you know? And that really determines whether you're a musician or just someone that wants to make money playing music.
Awesome. So what are your influences? What influences you?
Well, just because I'm in a metal band doesn't necessarily mean that I'll only listen to metal. I mean, I do, and sometimes it does get a bit too much because, I mean, you can only handle so much aggressive music in a day, right? But no, I listen to everything, everything from like Coldplay to Tupac, and that's hip hop. You know, it's not even in the genre of music that I'm playing. Stuff like Gorillaz and like, you know, like Foo Fighters and stuff. And this is just music that kind of hits off on a lot of the genres. And I just, you know, like I said before, as a musician, you kind of got to appreciate all forms of music, even though you may not be playing them or you may not be creating that kind of genre per se. But yeah, I mean, you got to take something from everything, right? Because everything that's out there now came from something, you know. Exactly.
So summer is right around the corner, like everyone knows. And what are your plans? Are you going to go into the studio? Are you going to be touring?
Well, aside from everyone in the band working their butts off to make all the money they can this summer, yeah, we're actually recently we recently got attention from a booking agent who used to be our promoter, and he actually started up his own booking agency, and he wants to put us on so that he can book tours and shows for us, which is kind of cool because it's a summertime. A lot of kids don't really have much going on. And they want, they're making all this money, and they want to spend it on something tangible and a good experience. So a lot of shows is what we plan on doing. We just finished all the instruments for our EP. Just got to lay some vocals down, and hopefully once that's out in the summer, we'll be playing a lot of shows and pushing that thing, and hopefully, sky's the limit from there.
All right, very cool. So are you going to stick around and play one more time for us later on in the show?
Oh, most definitely.
All right, awesome. Okay, so in our next story, two unlikely forces collide. Raising the Roof, which is an organization that helps the homeless, and a handful of metal bands in the local Toronto area got together to expand the awareness of poverty in the city.
On February 12, 2009, Echelons Above Entertainment, a group of bands and local sponsors gathered to raise money and awareness for the rising number of homeless people in Toronto. This event was called Raising the Roof, Cranking Up the Volume.
All right, well, we're Echelons Above Entertainment. I'm Andy Hawk.
Anthony Positano.
Yeah, we're just an event production and promotions company. We also dabble in band development and artist direction, help them achieve goals and, set out objectives to reach higher levels in their business. Well, it was a long process in the planning for that one. We actually had a lot of sponsors involved, so there was a lot of work to get everything organized for that end. It was just it came about as an idea that Anthony had at first, and we just all collaborated to expand on it and kept growing into something bigger and bigger.
It was just setting up the events, like an idea is up in a portion that would make sense. Like all the ideas just up in the middle, but then we're looking for something like besides sick kids or anything else and nobody's done before. So kind of click, like Raising the Roof, as well as the Toques, which was winter, which helped out a lot for the event.
Yeah, and then after we had Raising the Roof's involvement confirmed, that blew it up huge.
Yeah, just went one after another.
Yeah, so then they gave us the Toques to start selling, and it just, it added a good legitimate factor to it, so... And it was also good because we could help out a good charity that's been plugging away for a long time, and they're Toronto-based as well, so it's helping out our hometown,
Basically, the dudes from Echelons Above came into Condom Shack looking for sponsors for their party, and we really like charity, and we like Queen Street community, so we figured we'd support. And then once Adrenaline and Steve's Music were on board, we jumped on board as well. I think people that are maybe not involved in this music scene, like whether it's like punk rock or hardcore or metal, I think a lot of people not involved probably think that it's just kids playing music and they don't actually care about what's going on in the world. So I think it's important to get like a bunch of, metalheads supporting causes. It's a good idea. Well, we had gift certificates that we were giving away, but we had to make people do fun stuff to get them. We took our inflatable doll, Pamela Blow, who's like a rocker inflatable doll. She has a guitar and everything. And we made people have sex with her, simulate sex with her, I should say. And whoever was the most impressive with their positions and adventure, won. And Neil won because he did the Eiffel Tower with one of the other dudes in his band, I believe.
First out of this type of fundraiser that was like a metal show, like with bands and stuff. It's not something that they normally do, but it was I don't know. It sounded really cool, and just figured why not? It's a good cause. So.
Businesses that want to associate themselves with this kind of positive message, I guess, and it's just better on you because like these sponsors are fronting up the venues for you to play at. When people see these kind of places backing up money, they're more, it's credible. They're like, these guys aren't just blowing steam. They're actually legit, and they, are putting a decent effort. A lot of people think that people that play this genre of music are, there's always these stereotypes about them, always like playing music or writing lyrics or presenting music as a whole. That's just like very negative because, it just so happens that someone's screaming or the music's loud and stuff. But if you actually, just sit back and kind of read what they're saying and actually check out a lot of these bands. They're actually talking about a lot of positive stuff, and we thought it was a perfect opportunity for us to jump on something like that, which gave kind of a positive vibe to that kind of bad stereotype to this kind of music, because you know, a lot of people do have that preconceived notion about this kind of music, and we definitely thought that this was something that would kind of help maybe push people to be a little bit more open-minded. That, you know, it's this kind of charity, or charity itself isn't geared towards one type of demographic. You know, like if you want to help someone, you should be given the opportunity to help someone.
Thank you. We are stormed their shores from Scarborough, Ontario. Whatever. Please give a round of applause for raising the roof. As one person that started off, thank you very much. It's a great cause, and we're happy to play this show.
What a great story. We are now going to take a look into the life of Linda Dorian, a single mom who is now struggling with cancer. Producer Kevin Exconde reports.
Linda Dorian is a single mother trying to prepare her 11-year-old daughter for life and all its obstacles, while battling ovarian cancer. This is her story.
Just before Christmas, I thought I was having a heart attack because I was getting really bad pains down my arm and my back of my shoulders. It was really awful, and I kind of ignored it until finally, about a week later, I decided I better just go to the emergency room. And I went. I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and they wanted to do emergency surgery, but it was near Christmas and I wanted to get through Christmas for my daughter. So being diagnosed, the first thing, when I cried, I didn't cry for myself, I cried for my daughter. It was because it's her I live for. She's my life.
One of the hardest moments in Linda's life was telling her daughter she had cancer.
She knew something was wrong because I don't think I told her right away. It was a couple of days. And every day she kept saying, you know, I feel like you're holding something from me. I feel like you're hiding something. You're not telling me something. And then I did finally sit her down and told her about the surgery. And then she just said, at least it's not cancer, And I'm thinking, okay, what do I do? Do I lie to her or, tell her the truth? And I know I had to tell her the truth. Remember? You were scared, and until I told you that my hair was going to fall out and I was going to look really funny, then you were okay. But I think you were okay with it when when you came with me for chemo, remember? Mm-hmm. Or actually when I came home for my first chemo. And remember I was pretending I was doing kung fu and my shoe flew off. And then you felt okay. And then you came with me for chemo, remember?
She means a lot to me because she's fun to be around. She's really funny. And we like to talk about stuff.
But Mommy, I want to be an actress, so of course I won't be shy. What's your name?
Like how school's going, and she tells me that she's not going anywhere, and things like that.
Her friend said, with my cancer that she doesn't, I'm not going to be around long, and she was pretty upset. But I just told Megan that, I'm going to be around for a while yet. I'm not going, anywhere anytime soon. So soon, anytime soon is not the next 2 or 3 weeks or months. I'm hoping that, I'm hoping to get past the 16-year mark, If I get past that, even to 17, her being 17, I'll be happy. That's what I'm aspiring to, because I know that she'll be almost a woman. She won't need me as much, and she'll be able to cope a little bit better. So that's what I am fighting for. I know she loves me. She's a good girl. But, she really is the one that keeps me going. She is the one. She's, as I said before, when I first got the news, and I cried, and the only thing that came into my mind was Megan. What about Megan? And that's it. It's all about Megan.
There are many things you have to do when a loved one passes away, one of which is plan a funeral service. Our producer Alex Young looked into the life of Jeff Caldwell, a funeral director at Humber College.
My name is Jeff Caldwell. I'm on faculty in the Funeral Service Education program. I've been on faculty since 1999, and I've enjoyed pretty much every minute of it. It's been great. It's the culmination of two things I love doing. One of which is being a funeral director, and the other is being a teacher. My experience in a funeral home, I guess, working in a funeral home, began because I needed a job. And a friend of ours said, I happen to know that the funeral home in town seems to always be looking for people to work for them. I thought, no kidding, who wants to work in a funeral home? But again, I wasn't adverse to it. I thought that would be interesting, if nothing else, to do that for a bit. And so I contacted the owners, and I went in and had an interview, and was hired immediately, basically. I just thought, yeah, that's amazing that I can have that kind of an impact and make such a terrible experience somewhat easier for a family and help them through that difficult time. I found the job to be extremely satisfying. The overall embalming procedure typically will take a better part of a couple of hours. We'll use something like this, which is a leg rest. So when the body is on the table, the legs are flat on the table, and then there's the surface pressure against the back of the legs. By lifting the leg up and placing the heel on this bar, or if the deceased is quite tall, we can place it up on this bar, we relieve all of that surface pressure along the back of the leg. And by doing that, then we're going to have more thorough preservation and more thorough distribution of arterial fluid. Blood products, anything, bodily fluids that are coming off the body need to be cleaned out. When you have a wooden surface, you've got a porous surface, and if we have blood or bodily fluids that drip onto that, they'll be absorbed into the wood, and then they sit there, and then they can release the pathogens back into the air. As you can see, the sink is right built into that, so it's totally seamless as well. So no cracks or crevices or anything like that that bacteria or viruses or any other pathogens could reside in. The body lift is here because our society is getting bigger and heavier, and where the average dead body would probably be somebody in their 60s, 70s, 80s, weighing from 100 to maybe 200 pounds. These days we're getting subjects who are 300, 400, 500 pounds in weight, and if we want to be in this business long term, we have to look after our own health, and we can't be ruining our backs lifting deceased bodies. If the individual has died from any traumatic death that has caused disfigurement, or if the individual may have died from a disfiguring disease, emaciated bodies due to cancer, or if there was a growth, a tumor growing, skin cancer in a visible part of the body, our students are learning how to remove that disfigurement and restore the body to an acceptable appearance. So in doing that, there's a special wax that is used in our industry, and our students are all given a large chunk of wax and a plastic skull, and generally they're given a photograph and told, make it look as similar as you can. Some of the tools, I guess, of the trade, in some cases where there has been trauma, in cases where there has been an autopsy on the body, then it's the responsibility of the funeral director, as part of the restoration of the body, to put the pieces of the skull back together. And so there's what's called a calvarium clamp that's been designed. As pacemakers have been developed and then refined, the pacemaker is a life-saving device that's implanted under the skin and monitors the beating of the heart. When the individual dies, if there is to be cremation, then by law, we have to remove these pacemakers before the body is presented to the crematorium. They're battery operated, and when those batteries are exposed to the extreme heat of the retort, the cremation chamber, the batteries tend to explode. Helping somebody out, part of that is being able to understand or trying to understand where they possibly could be in their emotions and in their grief. And when you do that, that family really becomes a part of you.
A lot of people get involved in drug and alcohol abuse, and in many instances, it tears family and friends apart. There are many misconceptions about homeless people. Producer Renee Klein spoke with Ken Kerr and Mike Plons, who were both able to overcome drug addiction and homelessness. They are now able to help other addicts through their experiences.
They are rehabilitation centers where people who face drug and alcohol addiction are able to go and obtain help to overcome their disease. In these places are people like Ken Kerr and Mike Plant that give back to the community and provide hope for the homeless and addicts by sharing their inspiring stories.
I got introduced to drugs and alcohol when I hit high school. I felt awkward. I felt a sense of not belonging, not feeling part of. I would always exclude myself through isolation or doing things that I thought would distract my mind from feeling that way. The first time I took alcohol and drugs, I found the effects of it, and then right away I drank for the effects. I drank to get drunk, to black out, to escape.
I started drinking with this one guy. We had a couple of shots of whiskey, and I wanted more. Instantly I felt this change in me. I felt comfortable with who I was. And I liked it, and I couldn't stop it. I would have to have enough alcohol to complete the job, or I would not touch it, because it's too painful to have a couple of drinks and walk away. That's not what I wanted. I wanted to get drunk and get away from this world.
My mind was focused on myself and what I was doing, and I continued to do this. It was a progression, a very fast progression. The drugs and alcohol increased, the charges increased, the jail time increased. I really started resenting the police. I resented everybody around me. At that point, I came to the conclusion that I didn't really like who I was, and I was trying to escape myself.
Every time I engaged in my drinking, my actions became outrageous. They called me Crazy Mikey, my friends. I would do anything to stand out or to show people that I was better than they were. You put a challenge in front of me when I was drinking, I would do it. Setting tires on fire with newspaper and rolling them down the highway. Throwing motorcycle sprockets through windows without even knowing who's on the other side of that window. I grew up being very violent, not towards people, but towards public property. I broke into schools and smashed them. So when people would ask me to do these crazy things, I felt as though there was not really a challenge. It was more for show.
I was walking through the alleys and seeing the realism of the addict in their full-blown disease. I seen people that were physically run down, their eyes sunk back in their head, needles hanging out of their arms. The smell of the back alley almost made me want to be sick, of urine, of dead things, just very gross environment, and it scared me.
I was given notice that the sheriffs were going to come and evict me out of my apartment for non-payment of rent. One of the guys who I was previously working with, we loaded up his van with things that I thought I would need to survive on the streets. I've grown up on the streets, so I have a basic idea of what was needed to survive. We drive down to this bridge, and we toss it over the side of a bridge in the western of Toronto. And it's fairly isolated. It's not very accessible for the public, and that's why I chose it. So I can be away from people, and they would be able to see me, Michael, the addict, or drunk, living under a bridge. I still had a lot of pride, but it was all misplaced.
I started to come out in violence, and my violence would be against passers-byers because I played the victim role. Don't they know that I'm homeless, that I have no money, and they have all these wonderful things. I see them walking down the street with their briefcase, and they're off, and they have purpose in their lives. I didn't have a quality of purpose that I wanted, and I was very resentful for that, and I thought that the world owed me something. I was using heroin as a means to escape. I overdosed on it, and you know, I was clinically dead, and they brought me back to life. They resuscitated me with Narcan, and then the next day, the insanity of my mind told me to go use heroin again. It reached to a level where I was not allowed in the shelters because of violence. The police had to be called several times, and I was kicked out indefinite of these places.
I thought I wanted it. I believed I wanted it. And it's that disillusioned myself that I would be better off by myself and society would be better off not having me in it. The feeling of despair and anguish towards myself and towards society is compounded. And it gets to the point where there's not enough alcohol or drugs in the world that can take that away. And when it came down to it, the only option for me was suicide. Or so I thought. Because I made an attempt on suicide, I felt like I did not own my life anymore. I lived every day seeking nothing but the drug. And everything that I would be able to save from not purchasing food and not buying tobacco went into my alcohol and went into my drugs. I would visit my mom and make up lies that I got a job interview, I need money, $10 here, $50 here for a pair of construction boots for a job that didn't exist. I would tell her things like this, and she would want to believe me so badly and have so much faith in her son that she would give me the money.
I went to London Elgin Middlesex Detention Center. They kept me on suicide watch. I was spiritually, emotionally, and mentally and physically broken. I refused to eat. I refused to drink. I just wanted to die at that point. In and around that moment, I don't know what it was. I believe that it was the grace of God came into my life and gave me the willingness to be well with who I am. My mental health worker gave me an opportunity to go to the Harbor Light treatment. I had no idea what I was in for. I just knew that I was broken enough and had the willingness to try anything to get out of the situations that I was in.
I was in front of my mother. She looked worse than I did, and I was the one that was using drugs. I finally saw that my using alcohol and drugs was killing her faster than it was killing me. It became very clear that this is beyond me. There is no more continuing. A choice has to be made now. And from that point on, I made my way into a treatment center, the Harbor Light, from the Salvation Army, and I listened for the first time. I truly embraced a God of my understanding, and I took direction, his direction, because my direction wasn't going anywhere.
The very treatment program that I went through, I actually work there now. So I'm able to give back in the same way that was given to me. I focused on myself for 33 years. I don't need to focus on myself anymore. I need to focus on other people and focus on how I can help them and how I can benefit their lives. There's nothing worse in an alcoholic's or an addict's mind than waking up in the morning and not having the hopes of a brighter day. And today I'm able to bestow hope to people. I'm able to give hope to them through my experience.
The best thing that I can actually give to a person who is homeless is the recognition that they're there, that I see them, that I am not going to be one of those people who just pretends they don't exist. That's not productive to helping them get off the street. I now go to hostels, to a detox, and I will tell my story. I will pass the light to another addict and give them hope. To see a person who's lying on the street with a bottle in their hand, drunk, passed out, and say, you know, the poor bastard put himself there. It's a misconception, you know. Living at home, for me as a child, and to sustain the beatings from people that say that they love you, or live on the streets, being embraced in the homeless community, and get away from those beatings, well, that's more attractive. So it is a choice. But when you look at the two and compare them, is it really a choice?
When I see a person on the street, I see myself. It's a mirror image of myself and my addict behavior. I can immediately feel empathy and compassion for that person. I see their pain, I see their realism of it. I'm able to tell them my experience. I have been extremely fortunate to be even here today. I've lived a very hard life, but a very rewarding life now that I'm able to see what life really has to offer. You know, life has given me just as much as a fair shake as anyone else.
Now, it just goes to show you there's always a positive experience from every situation. If you're just tuning into our show, you're just in time to catch our final story on today's episode. It focuses on the life of baby Jaida Fairman and how a complete stranger saved her life. Let's take a final look at our story by producer Kaila Smith.
Last October, baby Jaida Fairman and Claremont Humphrey had never met. Then Claremont gave Jaida a gift that saved her life.
I first found out about her condition or what she may have, I would say, 5 days after she was born. So what happened was we got a clean bill of health from the hospital. They said, we have a healthy baby girl. We went home the very next day. I was at home, and then I think by day 3, she started to become jaundiced. Her eyes were a little yellow, just a little. And I was like, okay, I wasn't worried because I hear about babies becoming jaundiced all the time. And so I went to Kids. They took her in, they kept monitoring her. And at about 11 weeks, they diagnosed her with biliary atresia.
Biliary atresia is a liver disease. It appears in young children, and usually it becomes evident shortly after birth. What it is really is a malformation of the sort of bile duct. So what happens, the bile that is made in the liver cannot be drained, and it damages the liver.
My cousin Ashley, she sent me an email basically with Jaida's story and trying to raise awareness because it's hard finding an organ donor. So I just posted the same email that she sent to me on my Facebook. I only expected people to respond by saying, "Oh, that's so sad. I'm praying for her. Tell her she's in my prayers."
I was not paying much attention until I saw it on my son's Facebook, read it in depth, and then understood that, there's something here that I need to investigate. I remember when I made the decision or actually obeyed the voice of God to be a donor, I told no one what I was going to do until I got word from the hospital saying that it's a go.
At first I was like, this guy's a madman. He's not going to show up. Like, he's not blood type O, like, as far as I knew, which was obviously not a lot. And he went and he got himself checked, and he was a match. And I was like, whoa. It began to get real when Dad asked me to give his number to Melissa.
He called and he was like, guess what? I'm O positive. And he was so excited, and I was excited. I was like, wow, the fact that he was so excited made me excited. When we went into Sick Kids, it was almost like a whole new family, because now you're in a place where mothers and parents, it's like they can understand what you're going through.
Yeah!
Good girl. Good job. Friends would call sometimes and be like, their kid has a cold, and they're like, oh, devastated. I'm thinking, I wish it was just a cold, like basically my daughter, she doesn't get a transplant soon, might not live.
I did not understand that the liver actually hurts because it's been cirrhosis, so that means it's almost like somebody is cutting you, and the wound is just hard and callous and is growing within her, so she was in a lot of discomfort.
The hospital for sick kids started to become a very familiar place for Jaida. The family spent close to 5 months collectively at the hospital, where 3 of those months, Jaida waited patiently for her liver transplant.
The night before her transplant, a bunch of my family came over, my grandmother, some of my aunts, my cousins, and we had worship in the hospital room, making a pure noise, and it was amazing. Even the nurses were like, oh my gosh, it's so nice that you have such, a great family support, but we were like making noise, and they didn't even bother us. They were just like, do you.
For me, the day before was like exciting, it was calming, it was a mixture of emotions, but none of fear.
I don't think I slept very well, because I was just like, it's like anxiety, you're nervous, you're scared, you're happy, all these emotions going. And then in the morning, we woke up and they were like, okay, we're taking her down. I think I got teary then. It wasn't because of the surgery coming up, but it was because she wanted to hug me, and I had to pull her off me and lay her down. I think that's what hurt me the most.
Basically, you have 2 operations side by side. You will prepare the recipient, the one who needs the liver, and then you will start operating on the live donor. and you will remove a piece of the liver. As I said, if it's a baby, you will take a smaller piece of the liver.
She was in the OR for pretty much like 12 hours. And then she went to critical care. I tell you, you're happy knowing that she had her transplant. The doctor came out to the waiting room to give us the okay, that it all went well. And, you know, the liver started functioning right after they put it in and all that. But seeing her, it was just like, wow. She didn't look like Jaida. No more yellow eyes, like things we take for granted. Seeing her with white eyes is one of the best things about the surgery. It might sound silly, but I think even though her stomach was getting big and all these things, she was still a baby. But whenever you looked in her eyes, you knew something was wrong. And that was the constant reminder that my child is not well.
It really didn't hit me until I went after to see him in the hospital. And I've never really seen my dad in any type of vulnerable state. I mean, every child who's been fortunate enough to know their father, you know, usually thinks that their father is like, you know, Superman, or like, you know, no one could beat up my dad or something like that. And like to actually go in and see him and with all the tubes in his arms and his nose, and I kind of choked up. I didn't like it, you know. I don't like to see the ones that I love in vulnerable states, really.
In December of 2008, Jaida was discharged from Sick Kids Hospital and was finally allowed to live a healthy childhood.
Jaida, the last time I seen her, was doing excellent. She's doing very well. Her mom told me that they told her that she was free to now eat any and everything because she was on a restricted diet. So that tells you she's doing exceptionally well. And I spoke to the mom recently, and you can hear her playing in the background. So that tells you, man, she has the life that any little child needs to have.
Day to day, it's great. She's just like a busybody. Now that she's walking, she's a walking professional. She's opening cupboards, emptying drawers, things like that. Keeps me busy, I must say. So it's great.
When I did see her, she doesn't wear the nose thing anymore. And like most of her life, she's been hooked up to machinery or wires in her nose or something, like, you know, something medical. But now she doesn't need any of that, you know. She's gaining weight too, so she's like, I remember the first time I picked her up, I'm like, damn, you're heavy. But like, she's cute, man. She's smiling with the family. She's doing really, really well right now, so she's good to go.
That was such a heartwarming story. Well, that's it for this week's episode of The Journal, but make sure you tune into next week's because it's the last episode of the season and we have a bunch of great stories. So as promised, Paul will be playing for us one more time. Paul, take it away.